What happens when two Hollywood personalities collide in a way nobody saw coming? Tonight, we're breaking down the moment that had everyone talking. The interview that went completely off the rails and the explosive confrontation that ended with one of the biggest stars in cinema walking off set. Before we get into it, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling us what you think really happened here, because this one is wild. So let's set the scene. The Tonight Show. A regular weeknight, and Kurt Russell is scheduled as the main guest. Now, Russell has been doing press tours for decades. The guy is a professional, always charming, always has great stories. This should have been easy, just another fun interview. But from the moment Russell walked out and sat down, something felt different. The energy was off. Jimmy Fallon started with his usual enthusiasm. That big smile, the laugh, all of it. Kurt Russell, everybody. The audience applauded. Russell waved, and he settled into the guest chair. Fallon leaned forward with that familiar energy. "Man, it's so good to have you here. I've been a fan forever, Snake. Please, Jack Burton. I mean, come on." Russell nodded, gave a polite smile. "Thanks, Jimmy. Good to be here." But there was something in his tone. Something flat. Fallon either didn't notice or chose to push through. "So, you've got a new project coming out, and I've got to say, I watched some of the early footage, and it looks incredible. But I want to talk about something else first." He pulled out a small stack of cards, glancing at them quickly. "I saw this clip online from an interview you did a few years back, and you said something that really stuck with me. You said Hollywood has changed, and not for the better. What did you mean by that?" Russell's expression shifted. Not dramatically, but enough. He tilted his head slightly, studying Fallon. "That's the question you want to start with?" Fallon laughed, that nervous laugh he does when he's not sure where things are going. "I mean, yeah, I think it's interesting. People want to know what you think." "Do they?" Russell asked. "Or is this one of those things where you ask a loaded question, I give an answer, and then it gets clipped and thrown around social media for a week?" The audience went quiet. You could feel the shift. Fallon's smile faltered just for a second before he recovered. No, that's not what this is. I'm genuinely curious. You've been in this industry for what, 50 years? You've seen it all. I think your perspective matters." Russell leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "All right, Jimmy, I'll bite. Hollywood has changed because nobody wants to have real conversations anymore. Everything is surface level. Everything is sanitized. You bring someone on, you ask them softballs, they plug their project, everyone laughs, and that's it. There's no substance." Fallon's smile tightened. "Well, I think we do more than that here." "Do you?" Russell's tone wasn't aggressive, but it was direct. "Because from where I'm sitting, this feels like every other talk show. You've got your cards, your pre-planned bits, your safe questions. When's the last time you had a real conversation with someone?" The audience was dead silent now. Fallon shifted in his seat, and you could see him trying to figure out how to navigate this. "I think we have real conversations all the time. I think people come on here, and we talk about real things." "Real things," Russell repeated almost to himself. He shook his head slightly. "Jimmy, you want to know what's real? Real is sitting down with someone and not worrying about whether every word is going to offend somebody. Real is being able to disagree without it turning into a scandal. Real is treating your guests like human beings instead of content." Fallon's jaw tightened. "I don't think that's fair. We treat everyone with respect here." "Respect?" Russell said, leaning forward now. "Is it respectful to ambush someone with a question designed to stir controversy? Because that's what this feels like." Fallon set his cards down on the desk, and for the first time, his tone had an edge to it. "Kurt, I asked you a question based on something you said publicly. That's not an ambush. That's called journalism." Russell laughed, but it wasn't a warm laugh. "Journalism? Jimmy, you're a comedian who hosts a talk show. Let's not pretend this is 60 Minutes. The audience gasped. A few people laughed nervously, unsure if this was part of some bit. Fallon's face flushed. "You know what? That's a cheap shot. I work hard on this show. We all do. And I think we've earned a little more respect than that." "Then maybe you should start by respecting your guests," Russell shot back. "Instead of trying to bait them into saying something that'll go viral." Fallon stood up slightly, his hands gripping the edge of the desk. "I wasn't baiting you. I asked you a legitimate question. If you didn't want to talk about it, you could have just said so." "Oh, I could have just said so," Russell echoed, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "And then what? You would have moved on to the next pre-planned question. And we would have kept playing pretend." "This isn't pretend," Fallon said, his voice rising now. This is my show. This is what I do. And if you don't like it, maybe you shouldn't have agreed to come on. Russell stood up, and the entire studio seemed to hold its breath. You're right, Jimmy. Maybe I shouldn't have. Fallon blinked, clearly not expecting that response. What are you doing? I'm leaving, Russell said simply. He reached up and unclipped his microphone, setting it on the chair. Because this isn't worth my time. The audience was frozen. Fallon looked around, almost as if waiting for someone to tell him what to do. Kurt, come on, sit down. Let's talk about the movie. I don't want to talk about the movie, Russell said, turning to face him fully. Not like this. Not with someone who's more interested in getting a sound bite than having an actual conversation. Fallon's face was red now, a mix of anger and embarrassment. You know what? Fine. If that's how you feel, then go. But don't act like I'm the bad guy here. You came on my show, and you're the one making a scene. Russell paused, his hand on the back of the chair, making a scene. Jimmy, the scene was already made the moment you decided to start this interview with a gotcha question. I'm just calling it what it is. It wasn't a gotcha question, Fallon shouted, and the audience flinched. He caught himself, lowering his voice. It was a fair question. Fair, Russell repeated. He shook his head. You keep using that word. I don't think you know what it means. And with that, Kurt Russell turned and walked toward the exit. Fallon stood there watching Russell head toward the exit. And you could see the panic starting to set in. This was live television. This was his show. And one of the biggest movie stars in the world was about to walk out on him in front of millions of viewers. He couldn't just let that happen. Kurt, wait, Fallon called out, his voice strained. Just hold on a second. Russell stopped but didn't turn around. The audience was completely silent, every eye locked on the two of them. The cameras were still rolling, capturing every second of this disaster. Fallon took a step away from his desk. Look, I'm sorry if you felt like I was trying to trap you or something. That wasn't my intention. Can we reset? Start over? Russell turned slowly, his expression unreadable. Reset, Jimmy? You can't just reset a conversation when it doesn't go the way you want. That's not how this works. I know that, Fallon said quickly. I'm just saying, maybe we got off on the wrong foot. Let's sit back down, talk about the project, talk about whatever you want. You're in control here. Russell let out a short laugh. I'm in control. Really? Because 5 minutes ago, you were steering this conversation exactly where you wanted it to go. Now that it blew up in your face, suddenly I'm in control. Fallon's frustration was visible now. What do you want me to say, Kurt? I apologized. I'm trying to make this right. But you're not giving me anything to work with here. Maybe that's the point, Russell said, taking a few steps back toward the desk but not sitting down. Maybe I don't want to give you something to work with. Maybe I'm tired of being part of this machine where everything has to be packaged and polished and perfect. Fallon spread his hands. Then why do press at all? Why come on talk shows if you hate them so much? I don't hate talk shows, Russell clarified. I hate what they've become. There used to be a time when you could sit down with someone like Johnny Carson or David Letterman, and it felt real. It felt like two people having a conversation. Now it's all about the algorithm, the clips, the reactions. Everything is calculated. That's not fair, Fallon said, his voice rising again. You think I don't care about having real conversations? You think I'm just some puppet reading off cards? Aren't you? Russell challenged. How much of tonight was scripted? How much of this was planned out in advance? Because I guarantee you that question you asked me wasn't random. Someone wrote that. Someone decided that would be a good way to start this interview. Fallon's face reddened. We prepare for interviews, Kurt. That's what professionals do. We research our guests. We come up with questions. We try to make the show interesting. That doesn't make it fake. It makes it manufactured, Russell countered. And that's the problem. Everything in this industry is manufactured now. The interviews, the controversies, the outrage. It's all designed to generate buzz, and I'm sick of it. The audience was still silent, but you could feel the tension building. Some people were uncomfortable, shifting in their seats. Others were leaning forward, completely absorbed in what was happening. Fallon took a deep breath, trying to compose himself. Okay, you know what? Let's talk about that. You say everything is manufactured. You say nothing is real anymore. But Kurt, you're an actor. Your entire career is based on creating manufactured realities. How is that any different? Russell's eyes narrowed. Are you seriously comparing acting to this? Why not? Fallon shot back. You play characters. You read lines someone else wrote. You follow a director's vision. How is that more authentic than what I do? Because when I'm on a movie set, everyone knows it's fiction, Russell said, his voice hard. We're not pretending it's real. But this, he gestured around the studio. This is supposed to be real. You're supposed to be having genuine interactions with real people, but instead it's just another performance. Fallon laughed, but it was bitter. So what? I'm supposed to just wing it? No preparation, no structure. Just sit down and hope for the best. Maybe, Russell said. Maybe that would be better than this sanitized, focus-grouped version of a conversation. That's easy for you to say, Fallon snapped. You don't have a show to run. You don't have a network breathing down your neck. You don't have millions of people watching, waiting for you to screw up. I have to make this work every single night. I don't have the luxury of just saying whatever I want. Then maybe you're in the wrong job, Russell said coldly. The audience gasped again. Fallon stared at him, and for a moment it looked like he might actually lose it completely. His hands were shaking slightly, his jaw clenched. You don't get to come on my show and tell me I'm in the wrong job, Fallon said, his voice low and dangerous. You don't get to stand there and act like you're better than everyone else because you've decided that Hollywood isn't pure enough for you anymore. You want to talk about manufactured? You've been playing the same tough guy character for 40 years. At least I'm trying to evolve. Russell's expression darkened. Evolve? Is that what you call this? Pandering to whatever trend is popular that week. Changing your opinions based on what will get the most likes. I don't pander to anyone, Fallon said, his voice shaking. I work my tail off to make people happy, to give them a break from their lives, to entertain them. And you know what? Most people appreciate that. Most people don't come on here looking for a fight. Maybe they should, Russell said. Maybe if more people pushed back, this industry wouldn't be in the state it's in. Fallon slammed his hand on the desk, making everyone jump. Then go start a revolution somewhere else, because right now you're on my stage disrupting my show and insulting everything I've worked for. Russell didn't flinch. Good. Maybe you needed to hear it. Get out, Fallon said, pointing toward the exit. Seriously, just get out. Russell raised his eyebrows. You're kicking me off? Yes, Fallon said firmly. I tried to be professional. I tried to apologize. I tried to make this work. But you clearly don't want to be here, so leave. Go. Russell stood there for a moment, studying Fallon's face. Then slowly he smiled. Not a warm smile, but something colder, almost satisfied. All right, Jimmy. You want me gone? I'm gone. He turned and walked toward the exit again. But this time, he didn't stop. The audience watched in stunned silence as Kurt Russell disappeared through the backstage door. Fallon stood there breathing hard, his face flushed, staring at the empty space where his guest had been. The studio was dead quiet. Nobody knew what to do. The cameras kept rolling. Fallon stood frozen at his desk, the weight of what just happened settling over him like a thick fog. The audience was still silent, and you could cut the tension with a knife. He looked around at the crew, at the cameras, at the confused faces staring back at him. This was unprecedented. This wasn't supposed to happen. He cleared his throat, trying to find his voice. Well, that was something. His attempt at levity fell flat. Nobody laughed. Nobody even smiled. They just stared. One person in the audience started a slow clap. Just one. It echoed through the studio, awkward and out of place. A few others joined in, uncertain, but it quickly died out. Fallon held up a hand. No, don't. Don't do that. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing behind his desk. I don't even know what to say right now. You all saw it. Kurt Russell just walked off the show. He let out a shaky laugh. That's a first. Still, the audience didn't respond. The energy in the room was suffocating. Fallon looked over at his band leader, searching for some kind of support, some kind of signal for what to do next. He got nothing. Look, Fallon continued, his voice steadier now but still strained. I want to be clear about something. I brought Kurt on tonight because I respect him. I've always respected him. I asked him a question based on something he said in another interview, something that was already public. I wasn't trying to ambush him. I wasn't trying to create some viral moment. He paused, shaking his head. But apparently that's how he took it. He sat back down, leaning forward on his desk. And you know what? Maybe he has a point. Maybe we do overthink things. Maybe we do prepare too much. But that's because we care. We want to give you guys the best show we can. We want our guests to feel comfortable, to have fun, to share their stories. That's all I've ever tried to do. The audience was warming up slightly. A few nods, some sympathetic looks. Fallon was finding his footing, trying to salvage what was left of the show. But here's the thing, he went on, his tone shifting slightly. You can't have a conversation with someone who doesn't want to have one. You can't meet someone halfway if they're not willing to move an inch. I tried. I really did. I apologized. I offered to start over, and he just kept pushing. He leaned back in his chair, exhaling slowly. So yeah, I told him to leave. And maybe that makes me the bad guy in some people's eyes. Maybe people will say I can't handle conflict or I'm too soft or whatever. But this is my show, and I'm not going to sit here and let someone tear it apart just because they're having a bad day. A few people in the audience clapped, then a few more. Soon, most of the audience was applauding, showing their support. Fallon nodded, accepting it, but you could tell he wasn't entirely satisfied. This wasn't how tonight was supposed to go. We were supposed to talk about his new project, Fallon said almost to himself. It actually looks really good. I was excited to talk about it, but instead we got whatever that was. He picked up his cards, flipping through them absently. You know, when you host a show like this, you meet all kinds of people. Most of them are great. Some of them are challenging. And every once in a while, you meet someone who just wants to fight, who's looking for a reason to be upset. And tonight, I think that's what happened. The audience was fully on his side now, nodding along, supportive. Fallon was regaining control, spinning the narrative back in his favor. I've been doing this for years, he continued. And I've learned that you can't please everyone. Some people are going to think you're too nice. Some people are going to think you're too fake. Some people are going to think you're not authentic enough. And you know what? That's fine. I can live with that. But what I can't live with is someone coming on here and disrespecting the work we do. Disrespecting the team that makes this show happen every night. More applause. Louder this time. Fallon was on a roll now, turning his humiliation into something else. Something that made him look like the victim. The reasonable one. So Kurt, if you're watching this, and I don't know if you are, but if you are, I just want to say I'm sorry it went down like that. I really am. But I stand by what I did. This show means everything to me. The people who work on it mean everything to me. And I'm not going to let anyone, no matter how big of a star they are, come in here and trash it. The audience erupted in applause. People were standing now, cheering. Fallon soaked it in, nodding, waving, trying to look humble, but clearly relieved. He'd turned it around. He'd made himself the hero of this story. All right, he said, clapping his hands together. We've got a great show for you guys tonight. Still, we've got some amazing performances coming up, some fun stuff planned. Let's not let one bad apple spoil the whole thing, right? The audience cheered again. The band started playing. Fallon was back in control, back in his element. The show would go on. But even as he smiled and joked and tried to move forward, you could see it in his eyes, the cracks, the doubt, the knowledge that no matter how he spun it, no matter how much the audience supported him, something had broken tonight because Kurt Russell hadn't just walked off the show, he'd exposed something uncomfortable, something true. And even though Fallon had managed to rally the crowd, even though he'd positioned himself as the wronged party, deep down he knew Russell had gotten under his skin. The interview had started as a routine conversation and ended as a full-blown confrontation. Two men, two perspectives, two egos colliding in real time. And while Fallon had technically won, he'd kept his show together, kept his audience on his side. There was a lingering question that nobody could quite shake. Had Russell been right? Was this all just manufactured? Was it all just a performance? And if so, what did that say about the state of entertainment? About the way we consume media? About the way we interact with celebrities? Fallon pushed those thoughts aside, diving into the next segment with forced enthusiasm. The show continued. The cameras kept rolling. The audience laughed on cue. Everything looked normal, but something had shifted. Something had changed. And everyone watching knew it. As the show wrapped up and the credits began to roll, Fallon stood and waved to the audience, that familiar smile plastered on his face. But behind it, you could sense the exhaustion, the weight of what had happened. This wasn't just another night. This was the night Jimmy Fallon kicked Kurt Russell off his show, and people would be talking about it for a long time. So, what do you think? Was Jimmy right to kick Kurt off the show, or did Kurt have a point about the state of modern talk shows? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more breakdowns like this. We're going to keep bringing you the stories everyone's talking about, the moments that matter, and the truth behind what really happens when the cameras are rolling. Thanks for watching, and and we'll see you in the next one.